We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor, and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black Executive Perspective.
Welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast, safe space where we discuss all matters regarding race, culture, and those uncomfortable topics people tend to avoid. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Reed. And we're here live to tackle the raw, the real, the often uncomfortable truths shaping our world. No fluff, no filters, just bold conversation on issues that matter. From power to politics, to culture, corporate America, we're breaking it all down without holding back anything. So let's get into it today.
Buddy, let's jump into it, man. So what do you want? Number one, it's good to see you. I just got back from the vineyard over the weekend. It was great. It was good to spend a couple of days with you and share some of the just some of the pictures and people from the vineyard has been fantastic. So, you know how it is when you come back from vacation, you have so many things you got to catch up on because the world keeps turning. And to be fair, we could be talking about a ton of different things that happened just in the last couple of days. But, you want to talk about, which I agree with, you want to talk about the peak head sex thing. So why don't you kick it off, my brother?
Yeah, so it's interesting to me as a historian or a person who has a degree in history when these things happen and I feel like it's being attacked. One of the primary reasons I went to school and got a degree in history, not only because I had a good memory, was because I figured I never had to go back to school again, right? Like once you learn it, you've learned it theoretically, right? But nowadays, Tony, it's not so much. They are trying to rewrite this shit like like it's going out of style.
Well, let everybody know what Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, here in the United States.
And it doesn't even fall into his purview. I'm not as much into that portion of politics, but I didn't think some of these things fell into his purview as Secretary of Defense because he's now wanting to resurrect or restore some of the statues, the Confederate statues, as well as rename some of the things that all of the things that occurred after George Floyd. We think about things like post George Floyd, where we started to become more empathetic, like we talk about, more sensitive to the nation as a whole and to the people who are constructed, whether it be changing the team's names for some of the offensive team names to all these other things. We had made a broad leap as a culture, as a society, on being more empathetic to the people as a whole. And for whatever reason, I'm sure you have theories, that is no longer being adhered to or considered.
Well, it goes into their playbook, right? So just to be clear here, so just everybody's clear, Hegseth is reestablishing two statues in the D.C. area, Confederate statues that were taken down, and he's bringing them back up. And to your point, it's amazing. Like, why is he, who asked of it, but is this part of your jurisdiction? I don't know, but net. And so to your point, back in, post George Floyd, I thought we all had a reckoning. We recognized, which we should have recognized. And we're going to dive into this today because I know some people are like, what are they talking about? Statues? You kidding me? Blah, 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 blah. But no. This is real serious stuff, right? But after the George Floyd murder, there was a reckoning conversation about these Confederate statues, and how, they're like terror, okay? They promote a false narrative. They were put up on purpose for a reason to continue terror, right? And here's the other thing, though, too. When you hear about Make America Great Again, right? This right here is where this is the era where they're actually, this is how I see it. I'll put it that way. This is how I see it. This era where there was white supremacy, black people, second-class citizens, the whole nine yards, right? And so we had a lot of states over the last 5 years that had these conversations, and in the state of South Carolina, they had their Confederate flag at the Capitol. They've taken it down. Yep. Okay. They've taken down a lot of statues because they want it to be an inclusive environment for everyone, recognizing that these statues are symbols of hate. And that's just, I don't care what you say, they are what they are, right? Second, they lost the war. Okay, so
Lost.
why are the people who lost the war, why they got statues? Where's that happen? Show me a Super Bowl. Show me a football team that lost Super Bowl and they get a Super Bowl. They got a trophy.
Right.
There's no such thing, right? And so, and then thirdly, which is more important, and let's just look at history. And every country where there was a victor and there was a loser, they don't have the loser statues and stuff standing up in the public square throughout the country, okay, because they lost. All right, it's the victor. When a country takes over another country, who flag goes up? The victor's flag. All right, you don't have separate flags. And if we think about Nazi Germany, let's be fair, okay, where you had the Nazis had statues and stuff to all that nature, right? Do you see those statues in Germany today? No. Okay. Now they have a museum, okay, where they can share that history and stuff to that say. So I'm not opposed. You want to have a museum about Confederacy and what happened and the history? I don't think nobody would be would be opposed to that. The challenge is you putting up statues, and here's the thing. He's saying, hey, let's put these statues back up. But at the same time, you're banning books that have anything to do with black people or people of color. You're taking them out of the library. Okay, you're systematically going through the archives through the government and erasing anything that has to do with DEI or race or gay or anything. We got a million examples, right, of you just erasing all that, but it's okay to put back up Confederate statues, right? Which makes no sense. But it makes sense because this is the game plan. And this is where people, and this is right in our faces. This is not, buddy, you a football fan, right? What was that? You a Baltimore Colts fan, right? Ravens. I'm sorry, but the reason I brought up the Colts, didn't they move out? They moved out to Indy, but they didn't do it in broad daylight. They did it in the middle of the night, right? Well, nobody can see them in the middle of the night, right? Here, they're doing it right in your face, right? Broad daylight. And then when somebody brings it up, it's like, what are you talking about? What are you guys, everything's about race? No, you make it about race because these are the things that you're doing. And if we push back on them or say it, then all of a sudden we're biased and we're this and all you guys do is thinking about this, and it's not true, right? But here, I'm gonna let you jump in, but then I want to play a clip so we can make sure that everybody's on the same page.
What I realized during this conversation with you is that supremacy has been delusional since the Civil War because they lost. Refused to accept the L. They refused to. They wanted compensation. They wanted all these reparations. They wanted so much concessions for the loss they took when they betrayed or were traitors to the United States of America. So all these people were traitors to the United States of America. They lost.
Treasonous, traitors.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely. And it's so similar to when Trump lost the election and refused to accept the loss. This is the manifesto of a supremacist.
But this is the playbook. And hold on. Let's be fair though, too. And we're going to dive into this. So you people won't be thinking Chris and Tony don't know what they're talking about. They're making stuff up. We're going to dive into some facts here. But here's the thing though. They did the exact same thing. They rewrote history. Okay. They came up with the lost cause. Okay. They didn't just say, hey, we got beat. We tried to, we wanted to keep slavery going and we wanted to keep our way of life going. We lost, it's over. No, to your point, they rewrote it, okay, and then come up with another different type of ending and then started putting statues up. See, this is the thing. This is where there's a reason behind these statues. So we're going to dive into it so everybody can see here that this ain't something that just came up. There was a reason behind these statues, why they put them up, why they erected them. There were a couple of time frames in history, which we're going to show you. And then number two, the why Black Americans don't want those statues. When you see the history, which we're going to share, you'll understand how these things are symbols of hate, and it's basically putting something in our face to say you still should be, you're inferior than us. All right. You should be in your place. And at the end of the day, we still see you as second class citizens. And if we had our way, you still would be back, you would still be under the whip. Okay. Now you may think that that's a little, Tony, you're going too far. No. But look, let's jump in. You ready, buddy? You want to start sharing this stuff with people? All right, so let's go with that. Let's go with the Hegseth stuff.
In the form of 2 statues. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordering the return of a statue honoring the separatists built by a Confederate soldier. Hegseth says the, quote, reconciliation monument should have never been taken down by, quote, woke lemmings, claiming the administration doesn't believe in erasing U.S. history. And it comes just a day after the White House announced it is bringing back the only statue in Washington, D.C., honoring a Confederate leader, which was brought down during the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Let me just tell you what one of these statues is, the one in Arlington by Moses Ezekiel, a Confederate soldier who puts the lost cause myth that the Civil War was not a war to keep slavery, that slavery was a positive good. Anyway, what do we think about the return of these statues?
John, a statue is celebratory, it's praise. If we want to preserve history, we have history books and we have museums. I'm America first. I support Americans first. And as a Black American, no understanding the history that Black Americans built this country against their will. And before we even get to reparations, didn't even get so much as a thank you. The Confederates were traitors and they lost. We should not be building monuments to nor supporting the losers.
I'm interested in what you guys think.
Yeah, me too. I want to know why you guys support a party that wants to elevate the lost cause of traitors.
Wait. You just put words in our mouth. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. We have a street named for Roger Taney, who wrote the Dred Scott decision, one of the 2 or 3 most despicable decisions in the history of the Supreme Court. He should not be honored with a street. It was a street that was named, that was picked during the height of segregation. It was not, he has nothing to do with the city. That should be gone. But we have a process by which you get a statue in Washington, D.C. One of the statues in question was paid for by the Masons. If you want to get rid of that statue, you don't topple it in the middle of the night with a bunch of criminal thugs. You do it through the process of the city.
Okay, so are you okay with them putting, fine.
So you go through the process to take down the statues.
Are you okay with the statue that is being put, the monument that's being put back in Arlington Cemetery?
Well, I don't know much about that statue.
I'll tell you about it. So I will tell you about it. Well, but Pete Hegseth needs to pick up a book unless he's okay with the lost cause, because that statue is a statue that is romanticizing the lost cause and the Confederacy. It depicts what that we just showed on CNN. It depicts a Black slave handing over a baby that the Confederate soldier who's going off to war, and making it look like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you're going off to war. They're traitors and treasonous, and I'm sorry, but that Black slave right there, believe me, she wasn't happy about doing that. The white woman that's standing there that they're making, that has like a crown of olives on her head, and making it look like she's protecting the slaves, and that depicts that there are Black slaves fighting alongside their slave owners. There's nothing reconciliatory about anything with that statue. And not only that, Moses Ezekiel's own family, 22 members of his family, wrote a letter to the government saying, you know what? This is not okay. It should be removed. Put it in a museum. So why is Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, putting this back? Because Lloyd Austin, our other Secretary of Defense, one who's actually qualified to do his job, took that down because he recognized what an affront it is to Black Americans and the original sin of this country. So why is Pete Hegseth putting it back and honoring these traitors?
So, in my opinion, every single Confederate monument is an act of cultural terrorism. And I'll tell you why. This movement, the Lost Cause movement, arising.
Sorry, buddy, I had to cut it off there, though. But let me hear your. I mean, that was a lot. So let me hear your thoughts.
You know what? The funny part about it is, they partially miseducate themselves to where when you challenge it in the time frame, they say, "Well, I don't know nothing about that."
I don't know nothing about that. I don't know nothing about that. I don't know nothing about that. I don't know about this statue. All right. I don't know about this statue. Right. So you see, don't know nothing, but oppose stuff. All right. Not only that, Absolutely. Hold on. But here's the other. So there's a lot. So let's break it down. So number one, his point of view is, well, you have to, there's a law where you can, there's a process in terms of getting a statue or taking the statue down. But here's the kicker. But, having some thugs Again, that's a code word. Okay. Having some thugs that show up in the middle of the night and topple it down ain't right. All right. So this is his logic. His logic is, well, it doesn't matter that it's promoting the lost cause. It doesn't matter that it's domestic terrorism to African American people. It doesn't matter that they're promoting people who are traitors and treasonous, okay, who lost the war. That don't matter. What matters is that the way they took the statue down. And so that's his point of view.
Well, I think what stood out to me was him saying that the statue that was commissioned by the Freemasons should go back up because they already paid for it. Like, what are we talking
Buddy,
about?
I don't even want to get caught up because you know what? And again, this is, so that's number one, right? And my girl, Tara Sotomayor, I don't know if you ever follow her or not, but she's awesome, right? And just to be clear here, and just to be, oh, she's a liberal. No, she's a Republican, and she's been a Republican for years. So if anybody should just to bring that up, which really shouldn't matter, but just to be clear, because, we always want to put people in boxes, okay? So if they're taken up for something, they must be this from a political standpoint, or that's not true here, okay? That's just not true in most cases, right? But the number one is that, as my sister said, the first sister, we built the country, okay? And at the end of the day, didn't even get a thank you. All right, not even, hold on. Wait a minute, not only, check this out. Reagan, what was it, 86, 88? One of those years, when they gave reparations to the Japanese, all right, for locking them up for 4 or 5 years, put them in internment camps, okay, during World War II, which was wrong. They did that. They apologized. They said, "Hey, we wrong. We were wrong in doing that, and we're gonna pay you money." And then not only that, you're the model minority, so we should. Yeah, which was a backhanded comment, right? To be fair, you ain't equal to us anyway, but you the model minority, right? But you thank them. And if I remember, Clinton was going to come out. If I remember this correctly, Clinton was going to come out and make an official apology for slavery, okay? And people lost their mind, and which he didn't, and I don't think he ever did it either, right? So, yeah, he didn't, right? He was going to do it, and they were, what? Blah, blah, blah. So her point is not even a thank you, okay? But it's okay. And I'm going back to what I was saying earlier. These guys are erasing history left and right, anything to do with people of color. Okay, that is a fact. That is a fact. But it's okay to put up these statues, okay, that are, if anything has to do with a negativity when it comes to race, it's that. But that's okay. That is, because it shows their superiority, okay, and it's all right. It's fine. And then to the point where the dude on there saying, when she said, "Well, you know what these statues are about?" I don't really know. They don't care to know. Like, what was my man say? Petey and what's the flick? Remember the Titans? He don't want to know. All right.
Right. The issue though is, it's, to me, Tony, it's the erasing of history. There have been times where societies have been conquered and people came over and burned libraries and all this other stuff to erase somebody's history, somebody's culture. They're rewriting history. So if there was a gap, if there was nothing there, we could speculate as to what occurred. But what they want is, for 50 years, 75 years, 100 years from now, there to be a false history. And that's the danger, because once it gets so far removed and we let it go and let it slide, it becomes the de facto truth. So it's not the erasing of history that is much of a concern. It's the rewriting of history that causes the problem for me.
Well, I hear you, buddy. I think both. I get it. If you take over a country and you know, to the victor goes the spoils, right? You want to right? That ain't the case here. Okay, we're still living here, right? These are the same people who we. These are the same people who we call neighbor. Okay, so nobody came and conquered us. Okay, and then I get that you want to burn up everything and act like they never lived here before. Okay, you won. You have the right to do it, right? But That ain't the case here. So at the end of the day, they're rewriting it right in front of our faces. All right. And then look at you sideways. Like, what are you talking about? Okay. And so when you bring it up, the clip right there shows you, okay, where everybody, and the dude, what's his name? He drives me crazy. He always looks so smug and stuff. He's the smartest dude in the room. I forget his name. He drives me crazy, right? But the bottom line is that even them try to make an argument or make a case that it's okay for him to reinstate this statue, when the guy, and the other piece there I don't want to omit, is that she said the dude's family, 22 members of the family, said this statue shouldn't go back up. But it doesn't matter. And so you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, okay, where you want to erase this history and talk about merit.
So I think we might have lost him for a second, but he'll jump back on as soon as it's good. But in the meantime, yeah, this is a very hot topic as far as people trying to act like it is not what it is. And so my question is, do we have anybody out there that has any comments on that or have any perspective on why that seems to be so comfortable for people to act like what you believe and what you remember is not valuable or not factually correct? You know, I'm not sure if we have any people that can comment on that or people that are checking in. Let me see here.
We back? Chris, can you hear me? Chris?
Hey, I got your back. You good?
Yeah, I'm good, buddy.
Yeah, we good.
They tried to
Okay.
They tried to mess with my Wi-Fi so they could shut me up. All right. But I ain't go for it. Right. You know what I'm saying? They tried to shut me up, but I ain't let them do it.
I'd asked the folks, was there anybody out there that had any feedback? Was there anything on your end that you could see?
Oh, hold on, buddy. Let me check. Right. Okay. Let's see. We got some feedback here.
Okay.
No, nothing thus far. Nothing thus far. Okay. Oh, hold on one second. Nope, nothing right off the bat. But here, let's do this, man. Let's dive into, where did these statues come from? What's the reason behind the real reason? Okay, so people can understand that these were put up more, like you said, to rewrite history, but also to terrorize Black people, okay, from day one. So let's share that information right off the bat, all right?
But the construction of these monuments and memorials came in two primary waves that weren't directly tied to the official ceasefire. In fact, most came at two key moments within a 100-year span: the post-Reconstruction period from the 1880s until the 1920s, and the eve of the US Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. It wasn't a random coincidence that the statues went up during those time periods. As Professor Sanford Levinson notes in his book on monuments, quote, "Those with political power within a given society organize public space to convey, and thus to teach the public, desired political lessons." First, we have the end of Reconstruction. New Confederate monuments in the 1880s and 1890s were promoting a return to white supremacy and institutional slavery. Reconstruction had spanned from roughly the end of the war until the late 1870s. The period did see brief strides for newly emancipated Black citizens, but the end of the era was also marked by an incredibly swift reversal of the tides with the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, resurgent white nationalism, increased violence such as organized lynchings, and reduced rights. During Reconstruction, when Northern officials remained in temporary control of the war-ravaged Southern states, the symbols and ideology of the Confederacy were removed from public view. But as the period came to a close, Northern and Southern officials looked to make political concessions, most often at the expense of Black citizens. This included most notably the passing of Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were designed to extend the horrors of institutional slavery in Southern states under a different name. This meant stopping Black citizens from voting, organizing the convict leasing system in order to force Black citizens to work without pay, and manipulating the legal system to strip them of constitutional rights.
Thoughts, buddy?
So yeah, I think the era of the soft slavery was absolutely what she said, a concession that was afforded by the North or the victors to the Southerners out of what they felt was compassion or sympathy or whatever, because they was whining about the loss that they took, the property that they lost. In war, there are going to be casualties, financial, political, and otherwise, and human life. Let's just be honest. I went to a high school where we had people that died and fought in the Civil War in my high school, from my high school. And so we learned about things like that, but it was on both sides. There was no situation where all of these things that were aligned with a civil war created heroes that weren't United States heroes. These were heroes and things that were put into place from a supremacist perspective to remind you that you might have won the battle. And I honestly, that's the sentiment that I get, that, hey, you think you did something. Well, we just like gerrymandering nowadays and all these other things. Every time we have strides, every time we could talk to about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We could talk to about so many other things. If we ever make significant strides and they feel somewhat uncomfortable, they will scorch earth and say, I'm not supposed to be uncomfortable. You are. It's okay for you to be uncomfortable because you're lesser than. But if I feel a little bit uncomfortable, I need to burn these books. I can't let my grandchildren know about a sordid history because that makes my granddaughter uncomfortable. To hell with your level of comfort, to hell with your level of serenity or your pride in how you overcame such, defeatist type of dynamics. I don't care about that. I want to feel the way I want to feel, and I'm going to do everything I can. The problem is, Tony, in this situation, we have people at the top of the echelon of power and persuasion making these determinations. And that's where the danger in lies, is that we have the president and cabinet members that are saying, we don't care about your level of discomfort, United States citizens, Black Americans, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, here's the thing, though, bro. But that's always been the case. Where does it come from? The top. All right. So that ain't nothing new, right? But let's just back up on the clip, though, right? Because there's a couple things I want to make sure people didn't miss. All right. So number one, she broke it down, is that when the South lost and the North was in the Southern territories, okay, for Reconstruction, they tore all their stuff down. They couldn't put that stuff up. To your point, like they didn't burn up the land, right? Like you were saying earlier, like when somebody, but they all their symbols and stuff like that, they didn't let them put that stuff up, okay? And rightfully so. However, when they left for Reconstruction, when the North left and got out, then they started putting that stuff back up and more to terrorize Black people. Because within that period of Reconstruction, you just got finished saying Black people started rising. You had Black congressmen and Black senators, and then people having their own businesses and buying land and voting. And they were, and people in the South were like, I used to own them, and now they're better than me. They're doing better than me, right? So they couldn't have that. You just got finished saying, when people get uncomfortable, they'll scorch earth, right? So once, Grant? Grant made a rule. I forget who it was, the president. But once they decided, that, and how did it play out, man? It plays out just like it plays out today. You know, you said you're a history major and stuff to that nature, and you thought you could learn it one time, and that would be basically it, right? But it doesn't go. The same things play themselves out. All right, people in the North got tired of saying we don't need this Reconstruction no more. All right, same thing, same mindset. Here's the same mindset. They're good now. Black people are good. They can now go on and do their own thing. So we don't need to be there any longer, and the whole 9 yards. And then so that was it. That was reason they pulled out, is that they don't basically understand. They basically like, hey, there's no more slavery. We don't need to protect them. We can pull out. We're spending a lot of money going down there and holding our troops down there. Let's just get out of that. Let bygones be bygones and let's move on. Okay. And as soon as they moved out, what happened? Okay. You had the Confederacy. Now we're going to rise back up, but we're going to rise back up to let these black people know that you ain't getting nothing from us. Matter of fact, we're going to take you back. Although we can't own you as property, but we're going to institute all these laws and all these things, Jim Crow, you ain't gonna be able to, all these things to make, so we'll still be superior than you. It's the same game plan, bro. It's the same thing that they're doing today.
But the issue is we have to have people that are willing to protect the marginalized or protect the populace when you have people that want to take out the loss on those who can't defend themselves. So what happened was the South lost, and then they took it out once they got the opportunity, and the North retreated back to the North, or the soldiers like that. They took out their anxiety, their frustration, and their loss on the black folks that was remaining. They were left unprotected.
But what do you think they were going to do? You kidding me? They didn't, buddy. What do you think they fought a war for? They fought a war to keep them in bondage. You see what I'm saying? And so what do you think once they pull out, buddy? You look at it. You look at war, Vietnam. You know. We go over to fight for the South Vietnam, right? We had 58,000 Americans die, okay? Because we're supposed to be fighting so North Vietnam can't take over South Vietnam. And then the people that's there, all right? So what happens when the United States pulls out in 1975? All right, the North take it over anyway. You see what I'm saying? They take it over anyway. So all these people died for nothing. Okay, that's the key. So that's not nothing new. That's the only reason that black people were able to rise, because they had the protection of the North. Okay, and buddy, you just said it. You said it very eloquently just a few minutes ago. When people feel uncomfortable, when they feel like they're not getting ahead, and they see other people who they feel is inferior to them. Okay, that's what this is always about. That it is always, you know, Dr. Nasinga Burden said it flat out. She said it on our show when we did the thing about Wilmington's Lie. She said when black people start rising, and all you got to do is look at history, you know, all these race riots and stuff. You got Rosewood, you got, you know, Black Wall Street. You can just look at them, and a lot of them had to do with black people in their area was starting to do very well, and the white people in those areas was not. And they couldn't live with that. So what do? They go and burn down the black area, right? Because they don't want them to have anything. All right? Because they can't live with themselves seeing somebody else who they feel is inferior to them doing well. And that's really what it comes down to, man. And so go ahead.
Yeah, the tough part about it is it's hard for me to make the emotional jump that civil white Christian folks embrace criminal behavior in order to retain the illusion of superior. Like, these were, once again, Tony, laws were passed and enacted, and people said, be damned the laws. I am going to circumvent, and I understand we're living it now where people in power are saying, I could care less what the Supreme Court says, what the judge orders. No. That level of disregard is the most dangerous type of government or society to live in, when you have people that feel like the rules don't apply to them.
Buddy, so Chris, number one, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, right? You're 100, but bruh, it's been that way from the get-go. Somebody saying they're Christian means nothing. All right, they hanging. You know, we're going to pray to God on Sunday morning. We're doing a hanging Sunday night. All right, we're burning the black dude at the stake. I mean, what are you talking, buddy? That's always when you don't see somebody as human.
Yep.
Okay, when you see them as beast, or you see them as less than, you're thinking that, hey, my Christian duty, you know, and you even manipulate the Bible and tell falsehoods in the Bible to say, see, this is why you're supposed to be slaves, right? So you do everything and you think you're doing your Christian duty, right? So that don't mean anything, man. I mean, you know, that mean, so I get it. But here's the thing. Let's dive into the lost cause. What is the lost cause and why did they come up with the lost cause, okay?
So Confederate monuments were working to promote the, at the time, contemporary ideologies of the state, namely a return to white supremacy and institutional slavery. It also marked an important moment in the history of men who died and fought for the Confederacy and their families, because also around this time, the surviving soldiers and their families were aging. Many had infiltrated public office to continue promoting the official agenda of the Confederacy. Others turned their eye to establishing private organizations that celebrated a glorified version of the Confederate past. Enter the cult of the lost cause. In the aftermath of the economic devastation of the war, the so-called cult of the lost cause became an outlet for white Confederate supporting Southerners to express a cultural pride in institutional slavery and their lost way of life. A 1999 application made to the National Register of Historic Places notes, "The cult of the lost cause had its roots in the Southern search for justification and the need to find a substitute for victory in the Civil War. In attempting to deal with defeat, Southerners created an image of the war as a great heroic epic. A major theme of the cult of the lost cause was the clash of two civilizations, one inferior to the other. Like tragic heroes, Southerners had waged a noble but doomed struggle to preserve their superior civilization. There was an element of chivalry in the way the South had fought, achieving noteworthy victories against staggering odds. This was the lost cause as the late 19th century saw it, and a whole generation of Southerners set about glorifying and celebrating it."
So, buddy, so as you can see here, these guys rewrote it, right?
Absolutely.
To your point, and they lost.
Mm-hmm.
Traitors, treasonous.
Mm-hmm.
And they wrote it. And then let's go back to what you said a minute ago. You were like, Tony, and this is happening at the highest levels, the president and stuff to that nature. Do you know about the movie? What was it called? Birth of a Nation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was the movie Birth of a Nation about?
Yeah. It was about them taking it back. They was angry and they was taking it back.
It was about the lost cause. It was about the lost cause. It was the first everybody think about Jaws being the first blockbuster movie. The Birth of the Nation in 1903 or 1915, whenever it came. It was 1915, I think, when it came out. Okay, was like the first blockbuster. And the reason I said earlier, you said about the president. The president at the time, Woodrow Wilson, watched it and was like, "This is the greatest movie." The president had the Klan marching through Washington, D.C. So, buddy, so they rewrote it, and then they started putting these statues up, along with Jim Crow and all these other things, to showcase white superiority, even in a time frame where they lost. And it really was more, not just for Northerners, okay? It was more to dominate black people and keep them as second-class citizens. That's really what it came, because not just the statues, Jim Crow and all the things that go along with it, stripping voting rights, everything that you can name was part of that, okay? So when people today, let me ask you this, man. When you see somebody with a Confederate flag, what do you think?
Oh, that they're first of all stuck in time, and that they're holding on to delusions of grandeur as it relates to how that all played out. But I believe that I would use the term redneck Southerners,
right?
Who just who believe that they were right.
Well, let me
that was just.
Let me ask you the question another way.
Mm-hmm.
When you see the Confederate flag, with somebody, your neighbor puts it out on his porch, whatever, how does that make you feel?
Oh, that they're racist.
Okay, it makes you feel, but do you feel comfortable?
Not at all.
That's my point, right? It makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Because what does that symbol say to you?
Right. Oh, that they supported what the South was about, what the Confederacy was about. And it's like you write your school flag.
No. So you're 100% right. They support the, but it also makes you feel what else about them? You said it a few minutes ago. That they're racist. That they're racist, right? Yeah. And so when you think somebody is a racist, that makes you uncomfortable, right? Yeah. Would you go over and ask them for a cup of sugar?
No. No,
right. If you and your daughter was playing catch and the ball rolled in their yard, would you be a little nervous to go over there and get the ball?
Yeah, we lost that ball, right? It ain't worth it. It ain't worth that smoke, right?
You see my point? And that's just, you don't even know them. You just see their flag.
Right.
Okay, so what do you think if you're going downtown and we go on vacation like we did? We went to, was it Charleston? Where did we go? We went somewhere in Georgia. Charleston, I can't remember. We took this road trip years ago. We drove from Connecticut all the way down to Miami, and we stayed, I think it was Charleston, Georgia, something, whatever the case may be, right? And I remember we pulled into the hotel, right? And then I think the next morning I walked around. I can't read, but I was walking around, statues all over the place, and I'm reading the statues, okay? and here's this soldier or this and that, and did that make me feel comfortable being there? No, it didn't. Okay, none whatsoever. Now, was the people friendly in the hotel? Yeah, they were friendly. Right? But at the end of the day, me seeing all these Confederate statues, I mean, buddy, and I'm talking prominent. I'm not saying these are little bitty. I'm talking the biggest statues in the park. Right? So they're standing over everything. All right. And so it's all about superiority. My point is this. What we wanted to do today is educate people on why, number one, where did these statues come from? Why did they put them up? Okay. And then we didn't get into, they started putting more up when we were talking about civil rights back in the 50s and 60s. Then you saw we just talked about Reconstruction area and Jim Crow, but there's a whole nother level when they started putting these statues up, and it was just for dominance. It wasn't about, we want to talk about our history. That's BS. Because if that was the case, you could put all that stuff in a museum. Every state could have a museum. South Carolina Museum of the Confederacy, North Carolina Museum of the Confederacy, Georgia. So you can have all that in a museum, and then you can preserve that history there. Why do you have the statues up and flags up? Okay, and let's don't forget, and I don't want to omit what she said earlier. She said the narrator said that I forget the guy's name. He said he was talking about statues, and he says when public officials put statues in public areas, they're trying to teach you a public story. That's on purpose. That is on purpose.
Right.
Okay, and so and then for the Secretary of Defense, who let's be fair here too, who has all different type of races of soldiers, black soldiers, white, Hispanic, Asian, the whole nine yards, and for you to take a stand on this and then say that some woke person they wrote, what is you doing?
Yeah. Well, he has all different kind of constituents, but because the United States people are his constituents, and they are a makeup of a multitude of nationalities and ethnicities and things of that nature. But the issue is when you, once again, the policies and the symbolism is the biggest problem with the symbolism is I am a fan of knowing what's going on. So I made this statement before. If I'm in the South and I pull up to a gas station and there's a Confederate flag there, I don't need to be at that gas station. Like, I like to be forewarned in that regard. But when you put these into nationally funded or nationally sponsored areas, public areas that taxpayers, all the taxpayers, you just don't take the white folks taxpayers that want to abide by this and put it there. You put my money from the bucket into this investment as well, and you're marking your territory. You're like a dog pissing. You're marking your territory. That's what we do around here. As you stated with my neighbor in the Confederate flag, that's a overt symbolism of that's how we get down here. So when you went to that town and there was a plethora of racists and Confederate symbols and statues and epitaphs and things of that nature, you should have known, oh, that's how they get down here for generations. This has been signed off on and supported. Y'all wasn't thinking we should move here, or we should buy Airbnb down here. No, they don't want you here, and they're letting you know in no uncertain terms, this is what we believe in staunchly. Unfortunately, that's not a representation of the United States. So when you talk about in Washington, D.C., these things being resurrected or put back up, when you start talking about on public lands and in public spaces to continue that level of terrorism, to continue that symbology of what it used to be and trying to make it great again, that's where you've gone wrong. And unfortunately, I don't know if they don't have it used to be a situation where you could go back and check the bylaws and the laws and see if they have the authorization or authority to do X, Y, and Z. And then they would say, no, you can't, stop doing that, and they would stop. We no longer live in those times, Tony. We no longer live in those times where people respect the Constitution. They always throw that thing, the Constitution and the Constitution. For this to be a progressive party, they sure do like to go back in history and pull up things. We're progressing in the wrong direction.
Here's the thing, though, man, and this is my final thought, right? Is that I don't think they never respected the so you respect the Constitution. Come on, man.
They
Stop.
say it all the time.
But so here's the thing, man. So I don't. They never. Martin Luther King said something. He said, all we're asking of America is to keep the promises of what they put down on paper. Okay, and that's the Constitution. You know how that goes, man. At the end of the day, my man talked about Dred Scott, right? The Supreme Court justice who wrote the Dred Scott verdict, right? He manipulated the Constitution. So when you want things to go your way, okay, nobody follow. If that, buddy, let's be fair here. If we were following the Constitution, all right, to the letter, we wouldn't have this show. Everything would be fair. It would be a true merit system. There wouldn't be statues. It wouldn't be none of that. We would be living in a society. We still would have our issues and all that type stuff. But these things we wouldn't be talking about these things, right? And so they've never lived up to that. Let's just be fair. Okay. So this is nothing new, in my opinion. Right. And this is continually. And then when you want to make a case to stack the deck your way, you can come up with a million excuses. OK, a million of them. Right. But when you don't want to make a case, then you go by the letter of the law. OK, so but look. Number one, my brother, I always love chatting with you about these things. You're a very highly intelligent brother. You know your stuff very, very well, and you bring a different perspective, which I really enjoy. And more importantly, though, we wanted to share this with the audience, to educate themselves on. Because look, everybody's busy, and I know everybody can't keep up with everything that's going on. We can't keep up with everything that's going on, right? But there's some things you need to be privy to. You need to understand, and then more importantly, you need to understand the context and the history behind it, right? So then you get a better understanding of why people feel the way they feel, right? Because at the end of the day, when things don't affect you, first thing you're saying, what they talking about? I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? But when things affect you, then you're like, oh, now I get it, right? And maybe next week we need to dive into that too, because that's a big thing right? A statue, so what? It's a statue. What's the big deal? You know what I'm saying? But when it doesn't affect you, that's what you think, okay? But when it affects you, then you're like, we got to get rid of this, blah, blah, blah. And that's in everything. So I just ask people to keep an open mind. Like, you know, we always say the mind is like an umbrella. It only works when it's open. And really do your own due diligence on this stuff. Just don't take what Chris and I or the clips that we bring. You know, do your own due diligence and dive in and learn a lot more, because when you do that, I'm pretty sure you'll have a different perspective, or you'll be open to different perspectives.
And then my last point is that it is exhausting that the vocal minority are making claims, creating terms, and enacting policies that infringe upon the majority thought process of Americans. You talk about this all the time. Not all white people are this, and not all this. Nobody's monolithic in this regard. But nobody asked, when I say nobody, 4 or 5 people, 1.7% of people asked Pete Hegseth to go after this statue thing. 2.4% of people asked Pete Hegseth. Nobody's asking for this, but they're acting like everybody want it. Everybody is big and beautiful, and everybody no. You know, you're not giving me any supportive data to say that the American people wanted this, besides the fact that they voted them in. But a lot of them are coming out openly and saying, I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't. But they're to hell with what the people are saying at this point in time. And that's that authoritarian government. That's the totalitarian type of government, you know, dynamic that's being created, where we have to be mindful. It's this statue now, but it's the chaos and things that they're trying to distract us from. This statue is just a distraction from the Epstein stuff. Like you're making me outraged. You released the Martin Luther King files because the Epstein files don't want to be released. Like you're doing things that you're insulting my intelligence, and you're insulting my understanding of how things are supposed to go, and you're making me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
How about that? How about that? And it's okay for me to say it. If it's okay for you to say it, it's damn sure okay for me to say it, because we pay the same taxes depending on the bracket, right? So that's all. I want people to stop making it seem like I get 1 vote and they vote counts 3. No, this dude's vote don't count 3 times my vote. I'm not 3/5 or none of that. We over that. We're not going back there, bro. We're not going back there. All right. So just letting them know.
I love it, bro. I love it. I love it. Well, we want to thank you guys for watching another live episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast. We'll be back next week, chatting about something else, maybe the Epstein files, maybe something else, but we'll definitely dive into it. And so listen, we want to make sure that you check out our next episode of Pull Up, Speak Up, where our roundtable dives into, you know, these very provocative topics and these issues. And, you know, you have multiple perspectives, real talk, authentic talk. You know, some people here are watching us. They've been a part of the panel, the roundtable. So don't forget to check out the next Pull Up, Speak Up here on the Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Love Pull Up, Speak Up. That's absolutely powerful to get that combination of thoughts and the passions and experiences on one platform. But we also want to make sure you check out Need to Know with Nsinga, where Dr. Nsinga Burton weekly talks about things that are so topical and poignant for this society and for us. And if you talk about having water cooler ammunition, that's exactly what she brings every week. So make sure you tune in to Need to Know with Dr. Nsinga Burton. Don't miss that. Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss Dr. Burton. She's fantastic. And, you know, that's my sister. She's fire, smart, knows her stuff big time, buddy. So I think it's now time for us to do less. Am I right, my brother? Absolutely. We want to remind you to turn into our regular, you know, platform, but also come into the live and bring your comments with you. We would love to have some banter back and forth and allow for you to educate us on nuances that we might not have aspects to. But we always want to remind you that we do this to embrace our call to action, which is LESS. Our goal is to eliminate all forms of discrimination, and to achieve this, we're asking everyone to embrace less, LESS. And the L stands for learn. We want you to educate yourself on racial and cultural nuances and historical dynamics to where it's not able to be whitewashed, you know, beyond your understanding.
Absolutely, buddy. And then after you learn, you have the letter E, which stands for empathy. Now, since you become enlightened, now you learn, now you should be more empathetic because now you can put yourself in someone else's shoes.
And the first S stands for share. You want to share your insights, enlighten others. This is what we try to do with you all the time. Don't hide it, divide it. Make sure if you know something and you learn something that you share it with those that you care about so they're no longer in the dark.
Absolutely. And then the final S is stop. We want everyone to stop discrimination as it walks in your path. So if Aunt Jenny, Uncle Joe, Auntie Kathy, Uncle Arthur, your cousin, friend, whoever, if they say something that's inappropriate, instead of just letting it slide, instead of just laughing and feeling uncomfortable and don't want to say anything, you say, hey, I don't believe that. I don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can do that, if everyone can take these steps of learn, empathy, share, stop, we all will see a change in the world. And more importantly, we'll be a part of that change because less will become more.
So make sure that you tune in, like we talked about, to next week's live episode and to our other episodes that we have on the platform because we enjoy your patronage. Go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, give us review, give us ideas and things that you want to talk about. If it's something topical that you can get to us to talk about on a Tuesday live and you can get on there and give us some stuff too, we may even have an opportunity for you to come on and chop it up with us. Just let us know. Reach out. But subscribe. And where can they find us, Tony?
My friend, you can find the Black Executive Perspective podcast right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on our social channels of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at a Black Exec. For my fabulous co-host down in Dallas, my boy Chris P. Reed, I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked and screamed about it today. We were passionate about it. We're going to keep striving and thriving about it, regardless of the circumstances. We love you, and guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.